How did Napoleon Bonaparte, the man who conquered Europe, meet his end? It wasn't in a blaze of glory on the battlefield, but on a remote, windswept island in the middle of the Atlantic, a final chapter shrouded in mystery and controversy. This is the story of Napoleon's final days, a tale of exile, sickness, and a debate that still rages to centuries later. The year is 1815, the cannons have fallen silent at Waterloo. Napoleon's grand ambitions have crumbled, and the Allied powers of Europe breathe a collective sigh of relief. But they are also terrified. They had already exiled him once to the island of Elba, and he escaped, returning to France for a final, dramatic 100 days of rule. This time, there would be no mistakes. They needed a prison from which there was no escape, a place so remote it was almost off the map. They chose St. Helena. Imagine a tiny volcanic rock, thousands of miles from both Africa and South America, battered by winds and surrounded by an unforgiving ocean. This was to be Napoleon's world. He was housed at Longwood House, a damp and drafty residence often cloaked in fog. His every move was monitored by his British captors. A fleet of warships patrolled the coastline, and soldiers were stationed to watch his every move. He was no longer an emperor, but a prisoner. He spent his days dictating his memoirs, gardening, and staring out at the vast, empty ocean that had become his cage. The man who had redrawn the map of Europe was now confined to a few square miles of desolate land. Soon after arriving, Napoleon's legendary stamina began to fail. He complained of constant gnawing pain in his stomach, debilitating fatigue, and a host of other ailments. The doctors of the 19th century were baffled. Their treatments were often brutal and ineffective. They prescribed remedies like tartar emetic, a compound that induced vomiting, and calomel, a mercury-based laxative. It's highly likely these so-called cures only weakened him further, accelerating his decline in the miserable conditions of Longwood. His health spiraled downwards, his once powerful physique wasting away. On the 5th of May, 1821, at the age of 51, Napoleon Bonaparte died. An autopsy was performed the very next day by his personal physician, Francesco Antommarchi. The official cause of death was listed as stomach cancer, a disease that had also claimed his father. The case seemed closed. The great disruptor of Europe was gone, and the world could move on. But for many, the story didn't add up. Whispers of foul play began almost immediately. How could this giant of history simply wither away? The mystery deepened over a century later. In the 1960s, scientists analyzed preserved strands of Napoleon's hair. What they found was astonishing. Levels of arsenic hundreds of times higher than the normal amount. The arsenic theory exploded into public consciousness. Was Napoleon slowly poisoned? Suspicion fell on his captors, the British, or perhaps even a royalist agent within his own household. However, the plot isn't that simple. In the 19th century, arsenic was everywhere. It was in wallpaper, glue, medicines, and even cosmetics. It's possible that his exposure was environmental, a slow accumulation over time rather than a deliberate plot. The debate rages on. Why would anyone want to poison him? We have to remember the sheer terror Napoleon inspired to the monarchies of Europe. He wasn't just a general. He was the living embodiment of the French Revolution. He represented a threat to the old order, a symbol of merit over birthright. Even in exile, his legend was potent. The British were terrified he might escape again, or that his very existence would inspire new revolutions across the continent. His death, by any means, would have been a profound relief to the powers that held him captive. In the end, Napoleon's legacy proved far more durable than his physical body. Whether he died from cancer, medical malpractice, or a secret plot, his story didn't end on St. Helena. His influence, his military genius, and the laws he created continued to shape our world. The mystery of his death has simply become another fascinating chapter in the epic tale of one of history's most compelling figures.